I'll get started by just welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung, Sawadee Kap. Nice to see all of you guys this morning. Today's class is our group learning program where I share teachings over Sunday and Wednesdays to be able to help students to establish a foundation in the path to enlightenment. We use this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment, as our foundational text. And each Sunday I go chapter by chapter in this book, helping students to understand what you need to be able to move your mind to the enlightened mental state based on the teachings of the Buddha. Today we're in chapter 2, which is titled Why Study Gotama Buddha's Teachings. So I'll be sharing that with you after our meditation. We start with meditation. So if you guys would like to join for a meditation session, the way that I start this is with some chanting to ease us into meditation so that you guys can experience the chanting. It helps to bring awareness of mind and awareness of the breath. Then after the chanting, I'll move into providing you guidance on the actual teachings, on the actual meditation itself while we're actually meditating. Then there'll be a period of time where it'll just be quiet and we'll just all be meditating together. And then we'll come out of the meditation with some chanting. If you'd like to chant along during the meditation, either going in or coming out, we have chanting sheets over there on the table that you guys are welcome to get. You can see the chants that I'm using and you can actually chant along if you'd like. These chants, they're nothing mystical or magical. It's not a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. It just literally helps to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit their teachings to memory because everything that the Buddha taught was taught orally. They didn't write things down until after his death. So they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. So every 2 weeks, they would recite his teachings word for word for word. And this is the way that they would remember the teachings during his lifetime. So these chants, they're nothing mystical or magical. It's not a prayer or anything like that. That's not how chanting came about. But nowadays, some people think of it that way, but that's not the way that the Buddha actually taught it. It was used purely as a way to remember the teachings. And if you read these chants, because it has the English translations on there as well, you'll see that there's a lot of respect and gratitude and admiration for the Buddha, a lot of gratitude. And because of this, I suspect that the Buddha didn't actually create these chants himself, because a Buddha doesn't walk around and hand out chants and say, here, chant these things to me out of admiration and respect for me. But if you learn from a teacher of how to move from the anger and the sadness and the frustration and all these other discontent feelings to the peace and the calm, the serenity and the contentedness and joy that is the enlightened mental state, and it's a permanent mental state that you no longer experience any anger or sadness or any of those other discontent feelings. And this teacher didn't want anything from you, or they didn't expect anything of you. They just help you out of the kindness of your heart. You'd probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for that teacher as well. So I suspect that his students, either during his life or after his death, created these chants as a way to honor and respect him because they had so much gratitude towards him for having shared the teachings that it takes to be able to get to this enlightened mental state. So if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome. And as I mentioned, afterwards I'll move into some guidance where I'll be guiding you in the meditation. There'll be a period of time where it's quiet and we're just all meditating together. Everyone here at the temple and anyone who's joining us online, we can just all be meditating together. You'll hear occasional sounds in whatever environment you're in, but these sounds aren't permanent. The quietness during meditation, that's not permanent either. So if you crave for there to be permanent silence during your meditation, when you hear a bird chirping or a dog barking or a car going past, you might get frustrated or agitated or annoyed. But you can eliminate that from your mind by not craving for the environment to have a certain type of sound. Just understand that all these sounds are impermanent. And then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. In terms of your body positioning for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught, and you might need these at different times, and I teach these at different times during our programs. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking meditation. And these are the different positions that someone might use at different times for their meditation. Oftentimes, people are learning in the seated position, so I'll give you guys some guidance on the seated position, that if you're on the floor or in a chair, you might just sit with a cushion under your rear. This will help to soften your seat a bit. And then you might just lightly cross your legs. If you have them real tight, this will impede the circulation and it'll cause pain in the lower body. So just lightly crossing your legs is usually best. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So if you like to do that, you're more than welcome to do that, because it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. It's about finding what's comfortable for you. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. You're going to need to find what's comfortable for you. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you find whatever is comfortable for you with your hands and arms. For anybody who's either in a chair, on a sofa, or a bench, or a wheelchair, or anything like that, same thing. Sit however you're comfortable. Sometimes people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, and then they put their hands in their arms wherever they like. But you can see me, I'm in a chair with my legs crossed, so there's many different ways that you can sit. There's not just one specific way for everyone to sit. It's about finding what's comfortable for you. So again, I'm going to ease us into the meditation with the chanting, and when I finish that, then you'll hear me provide you the guidance on the meditation itself. And with your upper body, you probably like this to be erect. This helps the mind to stay attentive and alert and breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Wat Tung Bhagavanang Api Vateyami Savakato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakhato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath, not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุทธังมหาเขวันนังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสรังโอโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Welcome to all of you guys here at the temple. Welcome to everyone online who's joining us. Whether it's your first time here, or you've been joining regularly, welcome to everyone. Just to share a few things about the space, just to help you guys understand a little bit about what's here for you, is that if you'd like to use the restroom, we have restrooms here, the first door here and the very last door in the back of the room, outside the glass doors, there's restrooms there. You guys feel free to use those at any point. We even have restrooms outside the classroom. If you go out to the parking lot, you're going to see signs for the main temple bathrooms. You can go out there and use those restrooms as well. And then we have refreshments and things like that over here that's provided by our students. You're welcome to help yourself to anything over there on that table. There's water, and sometimes there's snacks that show up and things like that. So feel free to make yourself comfortable at any point. This is actually our temporary classroom. Our normal classroom is downstairs. It's being refurbished right now. And for the rest of this month, they're going to be working on that. And then we're going to kind of reopen it on January 1st of 2025, where it's all going to be completely refurbished. So today's topic is why study Gotama Buddha's teachings. This particular topic is part of chapter 2 of this book that I use in order to guide you guys in your journey to enlightenment. This book is titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. It's volume 1 of a 13-volume book series, and you can actually get this for free. You can download it from our website. You can take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon. And slowly but surely, by reading this book and coming to the classes, you'll be able to gradually learn the teachings that it takes to move the mind to this enlightened mental state. Today, what I'm going to be sharing with you is essentially an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha to help you guys understand what they are, because the reason why someone would be interested in learning the teachings of the Buddha is to be able to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. as you guys are going to hear, the teachings of the Buddha aren't a bunch of beliefs. You're actually training your mind. You're uprooting the causes and conditions that are producing things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these discontent feelings and others can be eliminated from the mind, but you need to be able to understand what's causing these feelings, so then you can apply the tools and techniques to be able to eliminate them. Today, I'm just going to share with you why somebody would be interested to get to the enlightened mental states, but through studying the teachings of the Buddha, and that is to get to the peace and the joy. But I'm going to introduce you to the teachings so that you understand what they are and how somebody would use them in order to move to this peace and this joy that is a permanent mental state. As we go in our talk today, you guys are welcome to ask any and all questions that you like, whether you're here at the temple or you're online. You can ask any questions. If you'd like to ask questions, we have microphones in front of the camera and a white bowl. If you could just get a microphone, turn that on by pressing the gray button, you'll see lights that'll come on, and then just hold it up to your chin and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you talk here without a microphone, they wouldn't be able to hear you online. So you can take these microphones back to your seat with you, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone. For those of you guys that are online, if you'd like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. I'll be able to see that and answer your question. And if you're in Zoom, you have the added feature of electronically raising your hand, opening up your microphone, and then we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online through our live stream as well. So in order to understand why study Gautama Buddha's teachings, it's first important just to understand what a Buddha is. You might not even understand what a Buddha is. So let's talk about that for a little bit. We refer to a person who's a Buddha as a fully, perfectly enlightened one. And they meet three primary criteria, and then there's other criteria as well. The first criteria that an individual who's a Buddha is going to meet is that they would have gotten to enlightenment by themselves, without the help of any teachers or any guides. They move their mind to this enlightened mental state where it's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. They figure out how to do that on their own, without the help of any teachers or any guides. Then, having awoken to this enlightened mental state, they then share their teachings for the rest of their life. From the time that they got to enlightenment until they die, they will teach and help countless people get to enlightenment, sharing their independently discovered teachings. And then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the three primary criteria of what make a Buddha a Buddha. They get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They figure out how to move to this enlightened mental state through training of their mind. They then dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people, and countless people get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. And then they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. And you'll know when you've gotten to enlightenment, because your mind will be peaceful and joyful. You won't experience any anger or sadness or frustration. All those discontent feelings that I mentioned, they'll be completely eliminated from the mind, because you know in situations where you normally experience those feelings, and then when you're experiencing that same situation and your mind is no longer experiencing the anger, the sadness, or frustration, you'll know that your mind is enlightened. You might actually think that other people are causing you to be angry, or other people are annoying you or frustrating you. But what you can see through the teachings of the Buddha, if you study them, is that your mind is actually causing these feelings itself, and this is why you can actually eliminate them. When you understand what's causing these feelings, you can actually eliminate them. But if you just keep thinking that other people are causing these feelings, you'll never actually eliminate them. You'll be angry and sad and frustrated for the rest of your life. So the very first teaching of the Buddha, which I'm going to be sharing in 2 weeks from now, is called the Four Noble Truths. This is where you learn the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And you learn it in a way that you can independently verify. So as I mentioned, these are the three primary criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. The reason why they can get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of teachers or guides is because of this fourth criteria. They have a profound memory, even in the unenlightened state. They can remember countless details about their current life and their previous lives as well. And they accumulate wisdom over multiple lifetimes lifetimes to be able to bring that together and actually get to enlightenment in their last life. Where the way that you might think about your own mind is that your mind is like a hard drive on a computer. It has a certain capacity, and that capacity is limited, maybe 500 gigabytes or 1 terabyte or something like this. And now with that limited capacity, as you're experiencing things in life, you kind of know what's been going on in your life in maybe the last 5 or 10 years or so. But when you think back to your childhood, you just have spotty memories. And the reason why is because you've had to delete those files in order to store new files, because you only have a limited capacity. So this is why you just have spotty memories about your past. Where a person who's going to become a Buddha, they will have a deep, profound memory about their current life and their past life too. All their past lives, that wisdom comes together in their last life to be able to apply it in a way that they're able to get to enlightenment without the help of any teachers or any guides. Then an individual who is a Buddha can quickly determine the condition of somebody's mind and then provide them teachings to be able to help them. So a student who's learning with an individual who's a Buddha, that individual could observe the qualities of your mind and then be able to offer you teachings that are going to help you to be able to learn and grow and develop and become more and more enlightened. But they would only do that if the student was soliciting teachings. An individual who's a Buddha doesn't just show up in your life and start shoving teachings down your throat in an unsolicited way. Instead, if a student asks questions and is interested to know the teachings, then that individual would share it with them. So they can quickly determine the condition of someone else's mind through observing the qualities of their mind. And then this last criteria is that a Buddha is a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. They teach whatever they teach, and they practice that as well. They're actually teaching just as much through their spoken words as they are through their actions, that their actions are helping their students to be able to learn. So a individual who's a Buddha, they're not going to be teaching one thing and then doing something completely different. They're going to be teaching whatever they teach, and then they're going to be practicing that as well. You'll be able to see that they're actually practicing those things. So if they're teaching to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, then that person themselves will be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, right? And there's other teachings that you'll see where an individual who's a Buddha would be practicing those teachings because they're teaching just as much through their actions as they are through their spoken words. And we refer to this individual as a fully, perfectly enlightened one. And the reason why is because they don't have any extra baggage. Whereas if you learn from a teacher who's not a Buddha, then you might just be kind of holding on to a few things that actually didn't lead to your enlightenment. Maybe 70, 80, 90% of what you're actually doing led to your enlightenment, but maybe there's like 5% or 10% of the things that you're doing in life that didn't actually lead to your enlightenment, but you're still kind of doing those kinds of things. And this is why an individual who's enlightened, we don't refer to that person as a Buddha or a fully perfectly enlightened one, because a Buddha is very rare in the world. But a Buddha, having gotten to enlightenment by themselves, what they know about the path to enlightenment is the pure path to enlightenment. That's why we call them a fully, perfectly enlightened one, that they don't have any baggage, that an individual who's a Buddha, they're essentially putting lights down along the path during their lifetime and making it very clear for other people how to get to this enlightened mental state. So this is what a Buddha is, and they're very rare in the world. The last one that the world is currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago, and the world isn't currently aware of any Buddha that has existed since that time frame. So then, in terms of what the teachings of the Buddha are, is it's a life practice, this path to attaining this enlightened mental state through purification of the mind. The Buddha discovered these individual pollutions that are in the mind. They were in his mind as well. And then he figured out the tools and techniques of how to eliminate them out of the mind. So he shared those teachings so that you can understand what those pollutions are and what the tools and techniques are to actually be able to eliminate them. And they lead to this enlightened mental state, this mental state that you can attain during this life, or you can attain this mental state at death as well. The ultimate goal would be to attain this mental state during your life, because then you can enjoy the rest of your life with this peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy. And this is a permanent mental state that you will be experiencing all throughout your day. You don't experience happiness for one part of your day and sadness and anger for the other part of your day, which is what the unenlightened mind will experience. But instead, your mind can just be joyful, uplifted, bright, and cheerful all day long. You'll notice that the mind no longer experiences any of these discontent feelings when you've purified your mind, that the mind will no longer experience any anger or sadness, the frustration, irritation, the annoyance, the bitterness, the hostility, the harshness, the guilt and shame and fear, the stress and anxiety, loneliness and boredom, shyness and resentment. All of these feelings and others are completely eliminated from the mind because you've purified the mind. You've eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing it. You'll notice that you have a high degree of focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory because now your mind's performing optimally. When you have this pollutions in your mind can't perform optimally. But by the time you purify the mind, then you no longer have that pollution, so the mind can be focused, concentrated, have clarity and deep memory all throughout your day. And you can apply that to any given task that you might be choosing to work on. You'll have deep wisdom about the path to enlightenment. You'll fully understand how to get to enlightenment because you've actually done it. And you'll notice that you're polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to everybody around you. Right now, you might find that challenging, that if your mind isn't getting what you want or somebody isn't doing what you expect, you might be bitter and harsh and hostile in certain situations. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you're not experiencing that any longer. You're not causing harm to other beings through your intentions, your speech, or your actions. You can be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to everybody around you. And again, I understand that might be challenging for you right now based on what's going on within your own mind. But you can change that. You can eradicate that through a purification of the mind. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships can be conducted with ease. They're going to be really blossoming. You're going to have harmonious relationships. Where again, right now, you might find that challenging. You might have certain relationships where you have bitterness and hostility and harshness in your relationships. But you can change that and you can transform that through changing your own mind. Sometimes when we're experiencing this in our relationships, we want the other person to change. And that might be what you're thinking, is that you want this other person to change. But you're not going to experience change in your life by wanting other people to change. If you would like change in your life, you need to take responsibility for your own improvement. And now you work to improve the condition of your mind through training of your mind. And that's how you experience real improvement in your life, is through you implementing change through cultivation of wisdom. And then the way that all this is happening, and I apologize that you guys can't see this last line. Normally we have the projector hanging up on the ceiling downstairs, but here I didn't realize that this projector isn't showing the last line. But if anybody would like to adjust it, you're more than welcome to adjust it and we can get the full line. But if not, I'll just explain to you what it is, because I know these slides. That what this last line is sharing with you is that the way that this mental state is actually accomplished is through eliminating what's called craving, anger, and ignorance. These are what's called the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires. Okay, this is a high-level way to think about the pollutions in the mind. There's these 10 fetters, or these 10 pollutions that the Buddha discovered, but when we talk about them from a high level, we call it craving, anger, and ignorance. I'll just give you a little summary of what these are. What craving is where the mind has this longing and yearning. It's chasing after the objects of its affection. It's thinking that something external is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. The mind has craving, desire, wants, expectations, and it's chasing after these things. And when it gets it, it holds on to it, and it gets these pleasant feelings. It gets so happy or excited because you got what you wanted. But if you have a craving, desire, attachment, and you're chasing after things, and you don't get what you want, then you'll experience painful feelings like anger or sadness or frustration or irritation or annoyance or some other feeling like that. And this craving is like your own selfish desires. The mind is thinking that something external is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases and chases and chases. So with craving, desire, attachment, if you have more money and you get more money, then maybe you'll be happy. But then when your mind's craving permanence, your mind will then want to hold on to that permanently. But when the mind changes, when your experience changes and your bank account goes down, now you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So as long as there's craving, desire, attachment in the mind, The mind, when it gets what it wants, it gets happy or excited. It gets some kind of pleasant feeling. But when you don't get what you want, you get the painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration in others. Okay, so this is the craving. This is the cause of all your discontentedness, that you're craving permanence. And you can see this for yourself. You can look at a recent situation where you've been angry or frustrated, and you can see that there was something you wanted. There was something you expected. And if you would have gotten what you wanted, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, there was this anger, frustration that arose in the mind. And that's the second unwholesome root. When the anger is arising, it's very painful for the mind to experience. And now, what you might choose to do with your lack of wisdom is you will push people away. You might have done this in your life, where you push people away or you push the situation away. This is called aversion. And the mind thinks that this is going to solve the problem, that if you can just push these people away, then everything will be perfect. But you can see that that didn't solve the problem, because it's only a matter of time before you get annoyed about something else or frustrated about something else. Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal that's growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear this animal into doing things your way. So this doesn't work either, because people choose to leave out of your life. Or you might put expectations on people. You might be trying to control them and force them to do things your way. You might be adamantly arguing with them that what they are doing is making you angry and they have to stop doing what they're doing. But this is the mind misunderstanding what the real cause of the problem is. That anger is arising because of its cravings. That if the mind would have got what it wanted, then it would have experienced the pleasant feelings of happiness, excitement, or elation, or some other pleasant feeling. But because the mind didn't get what it wanted in that situation, this anger arose, and now it's pushing people away, or being bitter, harsh, and hostile, or putting your expectations on people. And in this kind of situation, you can't solve your problem, and you can't live harmoniously with all individuals. And where this is all coming from, this unskillfulness, this craving and anger, is it's coming from this third one, which is oftentimes translated as ignorance, but I tend to not use that word. I use a phrase called the unknowing of true reality, or misunderstanding, or confusion. This is a better way to think about it. Misperceptions, this unknowing of the world around you. Because this word ignorance is kind of like a derogatory word, and this is the way that a lot of people translate the words of the Buddha. But a Buddha doesn't talk about people in a derogatory way, so I know that the Buddha wouldn't have used this word. So this unknowing of true reality, this lack of wisdom, this misunderstanding that the mind has, that's the whole reason why craving continues, that the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It lacks wisdom, that it just maybe believes that other people are causing you to be angry. You might just believe that because that's what other people are believing. But when you look at it closely, you can see that it's your cravings that's causing these feelings, that the mind is longing, yearning, it's wanting things to be a certain way, and if it gets what it wants, it's happy. Like if you wake up in the morning and you see it's sunny outside, you might be so happy. Yay, it's sunny outside. I feel so great. But then, because of impermanence, this sun is going to change. It's going to start raining at some point. And now, if you get so happy when it's sunny, that means that when it starts raining, you'll be sad or frustrated or irritated. Or if you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here and you get so excited, then when you experience change, and it will change because everything around you is impermanent, when it goes down here, you'll be sad and you're frustrated because your mind's not getting what you want, right? Or if you're in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, when you guys first get together, you might be so happy because you got what you wanted, which was a new boyfriend or a new girlfriend. You guys are having great conversations. You're going to the movies and going to dinner and maybe having intimate contact and taking nice walks in the park and things like this. But then when you guys break up, you're not getting what you want. The mind is longing, yearning. It's holding on to this person, wanting them to be permanent in your life. And this person isn't permanent. You might actually think it's your love that's causing you to experience those painful feelings, but it's not your love. Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. This loving kindness, this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, this active goodwill, that doesn't cause painful feelings. What's causing the painful feelings is your mind is holding on and wanting this relationship to be permanent. You can also see it if you have like a new car. If you bought a brand new car and you're so proud of it, and then you park it at a store and you go inside and you come out and you see a scratch on your car, you might get angry. You might get frustrated because your mind's craving permanence. It's wanting this car to be permanently beautiful, when in reality, this car is impermanent. But as long as you crave it to be permanent, when you see that scratch, you might think it's the scratch that's causing your anger. Or you might think it's the person who scratched your car. You might think they're the ones who are causing your anger. But what's causing it is inside your own mind, that the mind's holding on and wanting this car to be permanently beautiful, when it can't be permanently beautiful. It's just not possible. It's going to have difficulties. The paint's going to fade, the tires are going to need to be changed, the upholstery is going to get ripped or torn, but as long as your mind's craving permanence, you'll struggle. So this lack of wisdom that the world is constantly changing and that your mind has craving, desire, attachment will keep you stuck in this constant cycle of experiencing these discontent feelings over and over and over again. So there's a solution for all of this, and that's the teachings of the Buddha, this purification of the mind and purifying the mind of craving, anger, and ignorance, bringing in wholesome qualities of mind. Some more about what the teachings of the Buddha are is it's to help you understand these natural laws of existence. What I'm talking about here is this lack of wisdom. What the mind lacks wisdom about is these natural laws, that there's certain natural laws that basically are functioning at all times and they're affecting us whether we're aware of it or not. And if we're not aware of those natural laws, if we lack wisdom of them, then we will struggle and we will have difficulties in the world. It's basically like living in a world that you don't understand. And if you live in a world that you don't understand, you'll struggle and you'll have difficulties. So what the teachings of the Buddha are is to awaken to the wisdom of these natural laws so that slowly but surely you can learn them, you can examine them, you can investigate them, you can reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false, and then you can practice them, integrating them into your life and training your mind. This is how you awaken to wisdom, because you're not believing what the Buddha taught. Instead, you're awakening to the wisdom. What you're mainly awakening to is what's called the natural law of Gama. Some people refer to this as karma. That's the Sanskrit version of this word, where the original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language. So people who study the original teachings of the Buddha will tend to use this word Gama. What this refers to is cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. It's nothing mystical or magical. It's not a black cloud that's following you around. It's not about punishments and rewards or who's to blame or who's at fault. It's literally the results of your decisions. When you make decisions wisely, you will experience wholesome results. And when you make decisions unwisely, you will experience unwholesome results. Those results is Gama. So when you make a decision that's wise, you will experience wholesome Gama, or wholesome results. And when you make decisions unwisely, you're going to experience unwholesome Gama, or unwholesome results. So this natural law of Gama is affecting you whether you're aware of it or not. You might think that what you're experiencing in life is good luck or bad luck, or destiny or fate. This isn't actually true. Some people think that there's a being that's controlling you and dictating for you what you should or shouldn't be experiencing in life. But in reality, everything you're experiencing is results of your decisions. And if you doubt that, independently verify it. Ask yourself, who chose the clothes that you're wearing today? Who chose the hairstyle that you're wearing? Who chose the job that you're working at? Who chose where you live? Who chose whether you ate breakfast this morning or not? Right? These are all choices that you're making. And oftentimes we think that we're experiencing good luck or bad luck or destiny or fate, or there's some being that's controlling what we experience. But this isn't actually true. What's actually true is we have this natural law of cause and effect, or action and result. But when you lack wisdom of this natural law, you'll tend to make unwise decisions inadvertently without even realizing that that's what you're doing. And when you experience these unwholesome results coming back to you, you might be looking for someone else to blame. This is usually what the unenlightened mind does. When you experience wholesome results, usually the mind wants to take credit for all of those. It's like, yeah, look at all these things that I did, right? But then when you experience unwholesome results, it's like, somebody else did that. But in reality, all of these things are from your own decision making. When you cultivate wisdom about natural laws, you will tend to make wiser decisions, and they will lead to wholesome results or wholesome karma. You can see this with the natural law of gravity, that at one time we lacked wisdom of the natural law of gravity, but slowly but surely we gained wisdom of this natural law, because this natural law was affecting us, whether we're aware of it or not. At the age of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we really struggled with this natural law. We fell down, we hit our head, we bumped our elbows, we might have broke open our knees or our elbows, we might have started bleeding. This is because of our lack of wisdom of this natural law. And we made unwise decisions, and then we experienced unwholesome results. But slowly but surely, we gained wisdom of this natural law. And then we started making different decisions. And then as we started making wiser and wiser decisions, we started experiencing wholesome results or wholesome karma. We started tying our shoes tighter. We started looking at the surface of the sidewalk when we were walking. We stopped being so giddy and bouncing around like the little kids usually bounce around so much, right? We started making our way through the world with wise decisions. So now we can climb a ladder. We can ride bicycles or motorbikes. We can get on an airplane and fly all over the world because we fully awoke to the wisdom of this natural law, and we no longer struggle with it. But there's these other natural laws that the Buddha is teaching you to be able to help you understand how the world is. He's not explaining to you the way the world should be. He's not giving you a bunch of rules and commandments and saying this is the way the world should be. Instead, he's explaining to you the way the world is. And when you understand the way the world is, with that wisdom, you will navigate the world more peacefully. But when you're struggling and having difficulties, then you'll be experiencing challenges in the world. That's what that anger and that sadness and the guilt and the shame and the stress and the anxiety is there for. It's showing you, hey, you're struggling, you're having difficulties. Your mind doesn't have the wisdom you need to navigate this world peacefully. So that's the indication for you that there's still room for growth and development within your own life and within your own mind. So the Buddha is teaching you how the world is. And when you understand how the world is through these natural laws, then you'll be able to navigate it more peacefully. And as you do, your mind's going to be able to get to this point where you fully awoke to these natural laws and you've acquired the wisdom of them. And now you can eradicate these pollutions of craving, anger, and ignorance. And now you can get to the point where the mind's always peaceful and always joyful. So this is what we talk about when we're discussing awakening. You're awakening through cultivation of wisdom, through learning, reflecting, through practicing the teachings. You're examining his teachings. You're on your own independent journey, working your way to enlightenment. A teacher is essentially like a tour guide. We're pointing out to you the things that you need to learn and understand, but it's you that's doing the work. You're not a devotee. You're not a follower. That's not what someone on the path to enlightenment is. They're their own independent practitioner looking to cultivate wisdom. And a teacher is providing you books and resources. Nowadays, we have videos and podcasts, and you can get personal guidance and all these different kinds of things. You can attend courses and retreats, all available at no cost for you, whether you're here in Chiang Mai or anywhere in the world. We have technology now that you can attend this class from anywhere in the world if you have an internet connection, right? So you can gradually learn and grow and develop, purify the mind, awaken to these natural laws, and experience the peace and joy of the enlightened mental state. The teachings of the Buddha, they're timeless. That what he spoke 2,500 years ago, they were spoken very clear, very concise, and very precise. The way that he taught is he described these natural laws of existence. And these natural laws haven't changed since the lifetime of the Buddha. So the wisdom that the people understood at the lifetime of the Buddha that led to their enlightenment is the same wisdom that you need today, because it's the same natural laws. So his teachings are spoken very clear, concise, and precise. They're timeless. That he spoke in a way that you can learn them and apply them even today. He did teach about the cycle of rebirth, and this is something that you'll see in his teachings. He talks about the realm of hell, animal realm, afflicted spirits, the human realm, and the heavenly realm. And he taught these things for a reason. When someone first starts out on their journey to enlightenment, I suggest you set aside the cycle of rebirth, because what happened in the past, it's in the past. It doesn't matter right now. And what may or may not happen in the future, it's in the future. It doesn't matter. Right now, you're in the human realm. Your mind's discontent. You're experiencing anger and sadness and frustration. It's better to approach the core central teachings of the Buddha and learn those and develop your mind. Those core central teachings are the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 Precepts, meditation training, things like this. That's what you would really like to focus on when you're first getting started. But at some point, you might decide to approach the cycle of rebirth, because the Buddha did teach this for a reason. The reason why he taught the cycle of rebirth is because it's true. It's true reality. And you can independently verify that the cycle of rebirth is true. You might not know how to do that right now, but as you cultivate more and more wisdom, you can actually learn how to independently verify the cycle of rebirth. The reason why he taught it is not only because it's true, but because you might start having certain experiences based on the cycle of rebirth. As you're training your mind and you're uprooting certain pollutions out of your mind, you might start observing your past lives. You might start having vivid memories of things that have happened in the past, and they didn't happen in this life. So if you have these vivid memories of being murdered, for example, and you're in this life, so you know that it didn't happen in this life, this could really shake you up. If you didn't realize that this was your past lives, it could really shake up your mind. Or these beings in these various realms, you can sometimes experience communication from these beings where you can actually hear them talking, and they might actually be talking to you or talking to other beings. And again, if you didn't understand that these beings of hell and afflicted spirits and heavenly realm, that they actually were real, you might think you're going crazy. You might be diagnosed with schizophrenia, in fact. Or you might even see these beings. If you've ever seen a hell being or an afflicted spirit, which is essentially a ghost, or a heavenly being, if you didn't realize that this was true reality, it could really shake you up. So the Buddha teaches this for a reason, because it's actually true and it's real. And while people think that these realms are in some far distant place, they're actually all right here in the same time and space. So while there's a human being sitting in this chair right now, if I got up and left, there could easily be a dog or a squirrel or a rabbit or something else that could come in here and sit in the same spot, because we're in the same time and space. So these hell beings, these afflicted spirits, and these heavenly beings, they're right here in the same time and space as us. They're not in some far distant land somewhere. So this is why you can sometimes see them, or you might hear their voices, or you might have vivid memories of your past lives. So the Buddha is teaching you the cycle of rebirth because he's explaining the way the world is. And then you can understand that world and you won't need to be shaken up by it. The Buddha did teach about God, but he doesn't make God as a central figure in his teachings. He doesn't play a central role in his teachings, because it's not God that determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. Instead of putting God as a central role in his teachings, you're the central role in his teachings. You're at the center and the core of his teachings, because it's you that's learning and growing and developing on your journey to enlightenment. So some people will say that the Buddha rejected the idea of God, or he rejected God, or he denied the existence of God. This isn't actually true. For anybody who says that, they haven't actually studied the original words of the Buddha, because if you look at his original teachings, his original discourses, you can see where he talks about this being of God. He refers to him as the great Brahma. This is how they refer to this being during that lifetime. This supreme being, this all-knowing and all-powerful being, was described as the great Brahma, because that's how they refer to this being that we refer to as God. So the Buddha does talk about this being, but this being doesn't actually determine whether you get to enlightenment or not. And this being isn't controlling you. You can't treat this being like a genie in a bottle. You can't pray to this being and ask for things to happen in your life. Anything that you experience in life is coming from you. This being isn't punishing you and rewarding you. This being isn't controlling you and dictating what you should or shouldn't be doing. You don't have to fear this being. There's no fear that you need to have of this being. So the Buddha teaches about this being because you need to know certain aspects about this actual being. Okay? So he places you at the center of his teachings. And then in terms of the Buddha's teachings themselves, they're collected in a large collection of books. There's 45 volumes of books. They're about this thick. It's referred to as the Pali Canon because the original language of the teachings of the Buddha are in Pali. He spoke during his life, and everything he taught was oral because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world. That it existed in China, but it hadn't made its way to the area where he was teaching. He was born in what we refer to as Nepal, and he was teaching in what we refer to as Northeast India. And in that region of the world, the technology to write things down didn't exist. Now, you might not think about writing things down as technology, but 2,500 years ago, that was technology to write things down, right? So that just didn't exist. So he spoke and he taught orally. And then they used the chanting as a way to commit it to their memory. But then shortly after his death, they started writing down his teachings and they documented it. And this is referred to as the Pali Canon. And it's in 45 large volumes of books. But the average person who studies the teachings of the Buddha, or I should say the average person who considers themselves Buddhist, doesn't necessarily study with the original words of the Buddha because they've been largely inaccessible to the vast majority of people. Because over time, 45 volumes of books that are this thick to print out is very expensive. For the average Thai person, this would be 3 months of your salary to print this out. It's very costly. It's about $1,000 or more to print it out. So the average person, the average temple, doesn't actually study with the original words of the Buddha. And this is unfortunate because you wouldn't actually be able to get to enlightenment if you weren't studying with the original words of the Buddha. So what we've done as part of the book series that I share is this has been consolidated into 13 books, and they're more manageable and they're more digestible. And then we actually give them away for free. You can download them from our website. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing costs, or you can order them on Amazon. And in this way, we're making it accessible to everybody. And the name of this book series is The Words of the Buddha, The Path to Enlightenment, Revealing the Hidden, because these teachings have been inadvertently hidden for many, many, many generations because it was so costly to print this out that people over time weren't able to do that. But nowadays, with modern technology, we can easily print them out. We can send them across the internet. You can download it onto your hard drive. It's very easy for you to be able to get access to the teachings. So this particular book series consolidates it so that you can now learn it in a digestible, manageable period of time. So as I mentioned, when I first started out, what the teachings of the Buddha are is it's to heal from what hurts you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But you need to know what's hurting you, is that it's inside your own mind. It's not the outside world. You might think that you need to go around and fix everybody else and get everybody else to do things your way. But this isn't what's going to lead to your enlightenment. You can see that the Buddha didn't do that. He didn't go around the world and fix everybody else. He fixed his own mind. And when you fix your own mind, that's where you get to your peace and your joy. But with a lack of wisdom, you won't know how to do that. So that's why the teachings of the Buddha are there to guide you. The Buddha is like holding a light and helping you to be able to see this path so that you're not standing in the darkness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause here and see what questions you guys might have about what the teachings of the Buddha are. And then I'm going to share a little bit with you about what the teachings of the Buddha aren't, so you can see what they are not. So do you guys have any questions on what I've been sharing so far? Remember, we have the microphones here in the front. And you would like to get a microphone, Galit? No? Okay, you're just stretching. We have microphones here in the front. And then for those of you guys that are online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So Josh, you have a question?
Yeah, so is the natural laws of existence just the natural laws of karma?
There's other natural laws as well. Okay. Like dependent origination is a natural law. The universal truths is a natural law. These are all part of the natural laws. But the natural law of Gama is the main central law because it's this cause and effect. It's kind of like an umbrella, right? And then you've got these different laws that are under there.
Okay. And are all the natural laws of existence in the first book, or?
It's a combination of everything that you're learning, that he's exposing to you to these natural laws throughout all the books.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you for your speech, and thank you for your teaching, which is very inspiring. And I have two questions. The first question is that why enlightenment is so important? Why enlightenment is so important? Why a state of mind of peace, calm, and joy is so important? Is it possible that you live in a life where, like, you live in a state when you realize your sadness, your anxiety, your stress, and you accept it and live with it? And my second question is...
Let me answer the first one.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'll do one at a time. So the reason why eliminating your anger and sadness and frustration and all that is so important is that as long as you're experiencing those feelings, your mind's going to be shaken up. And now when you make decisions, you're going to make unwise decisions. When you're angry or sad or frustrated or fearful or feeling guilty or shameful or stress or anxiety, you're making unwise decisions. And now those unwise decisions are going to lead to further unwholesome results. So essentially, it's like walking down the beach, and now when you kick up the sand, it's being blown back in your face. And you don't like this. It doesn't feel comfortable. So as long as you keep allowing your mind to experience these feelings over and over, you're just going to stay stuck, and you're going to feel miserable, and you're going to be wasting time sitting around being grumpy and irritable and feeling hostile or bitter, having broken relationships over and over and over again. So you can get rid of all of that.
Okay, thank you so much. And then my second question is that, and you talked about the Buddha's teaching is all about you.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
You talked about that the Buddha's teaching is all about you. You are the center of everything. And I want to know how about the others, which is not like your personal relationship with the others, but the others that are like also like further related to you. For example, when you see war, like natural disaster, pollution, when you see people like dying because of that, and people are suffering because of that, when you see species dying out because of like pollution, like global warming, like how do you view these problems? And wouldn't you feel like empathetically and naturally sad because of that? Yeah.
Okay, so the problem someone is experiencing is not death. That's not actually a problem. That's just impermanence. That's a natural fact. It's a natural evolution of life that if we're born, we're going to experience death. So that's not the actual problem. The problem that an individual is experiencing is the discontentedness, the anger, the sadness, the frustration. The cause of that problem is that the mind is craving permanence. If you crave permanent life, you will view death as a problem. But it's not the actual problem. The real cause of the problem is the mind's craving permanent life. And it doesn't understand, because of its lack of wisdom, that everything's impermanent, that you can't have permanent life. It's just not possible, that this being was born, so it's got to die. So all these things that are happening in the world, it's just impermanence. And if an individual craves for the world to be a certain way permanently, they will have difficulties when things are changing in the world. So for example, if you want the world to be all peaceful, which is a great aspiration to have, is everybody to be peaceful. But if you want it, if you expect it, if you long and yearn for it, when a war breaks out, you will really struggle and have difficulties with that. But this is just impermanence. You can't control what other people choose to do or not do. So in that situation, someone can really struggle. Or if your grandmother dies or your mom dies, you might really struggle because you're craving permanence. But if you can train your mind to work towards things as a goal, objective, or interest and not crave permanence, you can get liberated from these feelings, because you understand that when mom or grandma dies, well, of course they died because they were born, they had to die. But it's when you hold on to them, wanting them to be permanent, that's when you'll have the sadness or any other discontent feeling.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay, let's see. We have a question coming in on Zoom as well. Let's see, this is from Janae. Will anyone who has a profound memory, the way that a Buddha did, end up becoming a Buddha? So an individual to become a Buddha would need to have a profound memory. There can be people who are either unenlightened or even enlightened that will have a pretty good memory, particularly as you get closer and closer to enlightenment. All enlightened beings are going to have a pretty deep memory, but an individual who's going to become a Buddha, they will have a really deep, profound memory. Even in the unenlightened state, they will remember countless details about their current life and their past life. And as they train their mind, they will experience more and more depth of their memory, where they'll remember countless details of their previous lives as well as their current life. So the level of memory between a Buddha and an individual who is just an average person or a person who's an enlightened being, a Buddha's memory is far superior to an individual who is either just unenlightened or actually enlightened. So an individual who meets all those criteria that I mentioned, that person will become a Buddha and is a Buddha. But not everybody who has a deep memory is going to become a Buddha. But everybody can become an enlightened being. Being a Buddha is very rare and very unique in the world. Some people think that everybody is a Buddha, but the Buddha didn't actually say that. That's what people are saying today, but that's not what the Buddha taught. He taught that a Buddha is very rare and very unique in the world, and you can see those individual criteria that I listed, that not everybody's going to meet those criteria. Okay, so let me see if we have any questions anywhere else. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere else. So now that you are starting to maybe understand a little bit about what the teachings of the Buddha are, this path to purification of the mind, this awakening to the wisdom of the natural laws, this ability to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. Now what I'm going to do to be able to help you further understand what the teachings of the Buddha are is I'm going to teach you what the teachings of the Buddha are not. This is one of the ways to help you understand what the teachings of the Buddha are, is to explain what they are not. They are not a collection of beliefs, doctrine, concepts, opinions, or views that will produce a pleasant afterlife if you believe in these things, in an unpleasant afterlife if you don't believe in these things. In fact, the teachings of the Buddha aren't about belief at all. And it's not about an afterlife. It's about right now, in this life, getting to peace and getting to joy in this life, right? So that's what the teachings of the Buddha are. They're not a bunch of beliefs. Because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody either convinced you to believe it or you've convinced yourself to believe it. And you don't know what's right or wrong or what's wise or unwise. You're just believing it. So you're not interested in just believing something because your mind can easily be shaken up with belief. If any of you guys grew up with the idea of Santa Claus, if you grew up with that belief, at some point, you might have found out that Santa Claus doesn't exist. And if you were like me, I was really shaken up by that, right? I was 8 years old. My sister was like, hey, I saw mom and dad eating the cookies and milk last night. Those presents we've been getting, it's not from Santa Claus. It's from mom and dad, right? I was really shaken up by that, right? So when your beliefs get to the point where you start realizing that they're untrue, this will really shake you up in your day-to-day life. So you're not interested in believing anything. You would like to learn, reflect, to independently verify, and practice. So the Buddha didn't teach a bunch of beliefs or doctrine, or he doesn't have concepts and opinions and views. He has independently verifiable truths that you can verify through your own direct experience. I also don't think about the teachings of the Buddha as a religion. If you currently think about it that way, then that's up to you. But I'll share with you why I don't think about it as a religion. Because oftentimes when someone thinks about a religion, you think about one person at the top of an organization telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing. There's usually certain rules, there's certain rituals and ceremonies, worship, and rituals and things like this that are performed, and certain rules and commandments. So there's these rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, and then there's these rules and commandments. If this is the way that you think about religion, the teachings of the Buddha aren't that, because there isn't one person at the top of Buddhism telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing. Again, you're your own independent practitioner. You decide for yourself what you would like to do, right? It's through your own decision making that leads to any particular results. So there isn't just one person sitting at the top of Buddhism. And there aren't any rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. If you've been in an environment that considers itself to be Buddhist and you've seen rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, none of those things is what the Buddha taught. Because there are places that you could go where you're going to see rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship, and those people think that what they're doing is Buddhist teachings. But you can see through the original words of the Buddha that he never taught those things. But as you guys heard me share, the vast majority of the world doesn't study with the original words of the Buddha. I've been to over 200 temples in my lifetime, and I've only ever been to one that studies with the original words of the Buddha. And if you do the math on this, that's less than 1%. So there's very few people in the world today that is studying with the original words of the Buddha. And the Buddha predicted this. During his lifetime, he talks about this. So the average person who might be doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, they might be firmly believing that what they're doing is Buddhism. But the Buddha never taught those things. He taught you to cultivate wisdom, and that's what's going to transform your mind. And there's no amount of rites or rituals or ceremonies that's going to cultivate wisdom for you. So if I sat here and I sprinkled water on you, or if I tie strings on your wrist, or I do any number of other things, that's not going to help you live your life because you haven't cultivated any wisdom. When you cultivate wisdom, that's what's going to help you improve your day-to-day life, because now you're making wiser decisions and you'll experience improved results. So I don't think about the teachings of the Buddha as religion because it doesn't meet any of these criteria whatsoever. Okay? Then you shouldn't think about the teachings of the Buddha as punishments or rewards. That's not what his teachings are. You're not being punished and rewarded by anybody at all. So if you think about teachings as punishments and rewards, that's not what the teachings of the Buddha are. He's giving you wisdom to be able to awaken to these natural laws. And now you make decisions that are wise, and you can see the truth for yourself that it actually works. There's also nothing mystical or magical or superstition or auspicious things in the teachings of the Buddha. You won't see any of those kinds of things. He actually says very clearly that there is no superstition in his teachings. There's nothing mystical or magical. The teachings of the Buddha aren't something to attempt to force others to do or convince other people to do. Sometimes that might be what you're taught in something like this, where when you come to learn, then maybe people try to convince you to go outside and convince other people to do the same things that you're doing. But that's not what the teachings of the Buddha are. It's all about you training your own mind. So it's not about going out into the world and convincing other people to do things. So you won't see people standing on the street corner with picket signs and beating a drum and trying to convince everybody to learn Buddhist teachings. It's up to you to decide to come to the temple. So it's not about going out and convincing mom or dad to do something. It's about you transforming your mind. Also, the teachings of the Buddha aren't short, catchy phrases that will produce some sort of benefit for your life. If you've been on social media and you see kind of like a short little catchy phrase, and then they'll put the words the Buddha or Gotama Buddha at the end of it, this is actually not the words of the Buddha. I've researched a lot of these, and about 99.9% of them actually take place in the last 50 to 100 years of somebody who said that. And then somebody just slapped the word Buddha on there to make it look like it came from the Buddha and it's wise. But 99.9% of the time, it's not even from the Buddha at all. So the Buddha didn't teach short, catchy phrases. He actually has these very detailed discourses that when you see his words, he's giving you these natural laws and helping you to understand these natural laws. The teachings of the Buddha aren't stuck in a cultural past that degrades or judges other people. Sometimes when you study something like this, someone might think like, the Buddha must have denigrated women, or he must have talked bad about the minority groups or something like this. But you will never see anywhere in his teachings where he denigrates women or any kind of minority group or anything like that. It's just the opposite, that he's actually teaching people to respect each other. He's teaching husbands how to respect wives. He's teaching wives how to respect husbands. He's teaching everybody how to be loving and kind, and he's doing that through the natural laws. So you won't see him judging other people or denigrating or disparaging any particular group of people, like women or any kind of minority or anything like that. So when the Buddha teaches, this is one of his discourses. This is what he actually teaches. This is the way that the Buddha would teach. And this is a particular teaching where he's talking about how rare it is to actually get to this human state. That getting into this human existence is the very best thing that could ever happen for you. Because now from the human state, you can actually get to enlightenment. Where if we were in the lower realms of hell, animal, or afflicted spirits, from those existences, we wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment. So now that we're in this human realm, we have the ability to cultivate our mind and actually be able to experience enlightenment. And he's explaining it to you here in kind of like an analogy. It's titled, Rare That One Obtains the Human State. He says, monks, suppose that this great earth had become one mass of water, and a man would throw a ring with a single hole upon it. An easterly wind would drive it westward. A westerly wind would drive it eastward. A northerly wind would drive it southward. A southerly wind would drive it northward. There was a blind turtle which would come to the surface once every 100 years. What do you think, monks? Would that blind turtle coming to the surface once every 100 years, insert its neck into that ring with a single hole? It would be rare, venerable sir, that the blind turtle coming to the surface once every 100 years would insert its neck into that ring with a single hole. So too, monks, it is rare that one obtains the human state. Rare that a Tathagata, that's a Buddha, an Arahant, a perfectly enlightened one, arises in the world. Rare that the teachings and discipline proclaimed by the Tathagata shine in the world. You have obtained that human state, monks. A Tathagata, an Arahant, a perfectly enlightened one, has arisen in the world. The teachings and discipline proclaimed by the Tathagata shine in the world. Therefore, monks, an effort should be made to understand. This is discontentedness. An effort should be made to understand. This is the cause of discontentedness. An effort should be made to understand. This is the elimination of discontentedness. An effort should be made to understand. This is the way leading to the elimination of discontentedness. So what he's sharing with you here is this analogy of this blind turtle under the water, and the entire earth is flooded. And there's this one ring that's kind of being blown around all over the surface. And this turtle comes up once every 100 years for a breath of fresh air. And the Buddha is saying, how likely is it that that turtle is going to insert its neck into that ring? Well, it's very rare. And he's saying that's how rare it is to be able to get into this human state. And now that you're in this human state, the Buddha is saying, hey, this is an opportunity to learn the teachings. And what he's pointing to here at the end is he's pointing to the Four Noble Truths. This is the problem in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. The problem is discontentedness, that the mind experiences anger and sadness and frustration, irritation, annoyance, all those discontent feelings. The cause of that problem is craving, desire, attachment. The mind is craving permanence. It's longing, yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. Then the elimination of that is to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. You can eliminate your discontentedness by eliminating the craving, the longing, the yearning, wanting and expecting everything to be a certain way permanently. And then the fourth noble truth is explaining the way leading to the elimination of discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the complete, perfect plan that the Buddha teaches that is going to help you to be able to make your way to enlightenment. So the Buddha teaches you how to actually progress on this journey to enlightenment. And there's an entire path that he describes. And that's the reason why to learn the teachings of the Buddha is to get rid of these discontent feelings so that you can heal from what hurt you, so that you never need to hurt ever again. That's the reason why to study the teachings of the Buddha, is so that you no longer need to experience these painful feelings over and over and over again. You don't need to experience broken relationships over and over and over and over again. So each individual needs to choose for themselves that that's something that they would like to do. And if you're done with the anger, if you're done with the sadness, if you're done with the frustration, if you're tired of feeling stress and anxiety, if you don't like feeling guilty and shameful and fearful, if you're tired of broken relationships and you're done with all of that, That's where the teachings of the Buddha come in. And the teachings of the Buddha are here for you and available at no cost, so that then you can get access to what it is that you need. Books, videos, podcasts, classes, courses, retreats, personal guidance. It's all available for you to be able to learn and practice and heal from what hurt you, so that you never need to hurt again. So this is what I have to share with you guys today. What I'm going to do is open up to any questions that you guys have. Again, if you guys could use the mics here, or for those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So I saw you had a mic. Just have to press the gray button on there.
Yeah.
There you go.
You said in Buddhism there is no worship for anything, but for me that chanting sounds like worship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some people think that way, but that's not worship. That's why I talked about it at the beginning, and I was saying what the purpose of this chanting is for is to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. During the lifetime of the Buddha, the chanting was used in order to commit the teachings to memory. That's the only reason why they would chant. So like this morning, you guys have now been listening to me, I don't know, for maybe about an hour, hour and a half. So now we would recite what David said, right? So what are the teachings of the Buddha? To heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again, right? This is the way you would like commit the teachings to memory. So that's the way chanting came about, is to commit the teachings to memory. And then now I use chanting as a way to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit. Because what you're doing when you're chanting is you're cultivating awareness of mind, where you're aware of your thoughts and things that are going on in your mind. Because in order to chant, you're going to have a certain amount of mindfulness. You're also going to need a certain amount of concentration. And then you're going to need to focus on the breath. Because when you're chanting, you're very aware of your breath. And now, having done that, where you've exercised the mind to a certain degree, now once you get into meditation, having done that little bit of exercise of the mind with chanting, you'll actually experience an improved meditation session. Mm-hmm. Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir. Yeah, it's on now.
Yeah, I'm just curious, which particular temple of those 200 do you feel followed the teachings of the Buddha?
So there's a temple down near Bangkok. It's called Wat Tung. They teach based on the original words of the Buddha. And they teach in Thai. So if you can speak Thai, in particularly Thai that's related to Buddhism, because they actually integrate a lot of the Pali words into the language that they use to explain the teachings of the Buddha, then you'd be able to learn at that particular temple. But if you haven't been able to learn Thai and that level of Thai, you wouldn't be able to actually learn there. But for me, I teach it in English. I've got all the teachings of the Buddha in English. There's very few places in the world that teach based on the original words of the Buddha. So there's that place that I know of. There's what I'm doing. There may be some other places here and there, but I really don't know, because I don't know of every single place in the world that's teaching. But these are the two places that I know that are teaching based on the original words of the Buddha.
I have a second question. The Pali Canon is, like you say, 45 volumes, and I always feel like, and I've read some of it, and I feel like some of it probably are actually words that the Buddha said, and maybe some was added later. Maybe I'm wrong. Do you feel that there's any particular volume that allows you to get closer to what the Buddha might have taught?
That's what I've assembled here in these 13 books. Is it's been consolidated in a way that this is what you need to be able to learn. There's not just one book that's going to teach you everything that you need to know. And you're going to need a teacher to be able to help you along the way. So what I encourage people to do is start with volume 1. That's going to give you a real spectrum of all the teachings of the Buddha. It's going to help you build a foundation or a framework. And then the other volumes, 2 through 13, will help you fill in that framework. So I would suggest starting with volume 1, and from there you're going to get a really good dose of the teachings of the Buddha. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You said that enlightenment is a permanent state, and what's happened with enlightenment when you die?
What's happening with enlightenment? What? Oh, when you die. So once somebody gets to enlightenment and dies, This is an undeclared teaching. The Buddha didn't describe what does come next or doesn't come next. If you don't get to enlightenment and you die, there's the cycle of rebirth. You're going to continue to come back into the world over and over and over again. But he wisely left what comes next after enlightenment as an undeclared teaching. And by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind is so peaceful and so joyful, it doesn't matter what's next. So the goal isn't to get to this pleasant afterlife. The goal is to get to peace and joy now in this life. And having gotten to enlightenment in this life, your mind will be completely peaceful and joyful. It doesn't matter, because if there is something next, okay, it's either as good as what you're experiencing now or better. And if there isn't something next, then so be it. So the Buddha didn't declare what does or doesn't come next. He actually lists it as part of his teachings. He says, remember, what did I teach? I taught this. And then he says, remember what I did not teach. I did not teach this. And he gave 10 different things that he did not teach. And this was one of the things that he didn't teach, of what does or doesn't come next after enlightenment. But that's not the focus of this path. The focus of this path is to get to peace and joy now in your current life. Okay. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do is just end class by thanking all of you guys for joining, and at the same time invite you back. If you'd like to learn more, you're welcome to come back. I teach classes here on Sunday, Wednesday, and Saturday. This Wednesday, we're going to be doing loving kindness meditation together, which is teaching your mind and training your mind to get rid of your anger and your frustration, your irritation, your annoyance, even the dislike. If you dislike other people, this is actually coming from your own mind, where you have certain expectations, where you want other people to be a certain way. And if they're the way you want them to be, you will like them. But if they're doing things that you don't want them to do, you might dislike them. So you can actually transform this, where you can just love everybody. And that's what the loving kindness meditation will do for you. It essentially rewires your mind to get rid of that anger and harshness and bitterness. Because as long as you have that, your speech and your actions will be unskillful. This is where you might have damaged relationships in the past. So if you'd like to learn loving kindness meditation and transform your mind to be more loving and kind, and then that's ultimately what's going to transform your relationships by you being more loving and kind, that's going to be on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. And then we have other classes on Saturday, and then next Sunday, I'm going to be in Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is titled, What is Enlightenment? This is a particular chapter that's going to help you understand more about this enlightened mental state. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. If you'd like to come talk with me about something, feel free to do that. Otherwise, enjoy your day, and perhaps we'll see you guys another time. Be well and take care. Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.